Thank you all for joining us today. This is the third Survive to Thrive session that we've put on, and by we, my name is Nic Miller. I'm the Executive Director at the Venture College at Boise State, and it's a program in the College of Innovation and Design. We're putting this series on in partnership with Trailhead, which is a nonprofit co-working space and startup incubator in downtown Boise, if you're not familiar. And our goal in these sessions is to help companies that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and get them access to the resources, information, and experts that we have in our network. A lot of what you see are the folks on the screen here with you. And really just try to help folks out as they navigate these unprecedented times. And we're hoping that the first two have done that. You can access those on the Venture College YouTube channel. We've had some really great guests, covered some topics. But I'm really excited about today's topic because, while it's less technical, it's certainly, I think, the most important in terms of we're going to be talking about your employees. We're going to be talking about the people that you work with, work for, and we'll be covering just the ways that you navigate this, both from a technical aspect as well as the more soft skills side of things and how you navigate it and working with your employees. What we'll do is we will ask our panelists to introduce themselves. And if you wouldn't mind, just for the start of this, as you log on, just to close your video and close your sound, just because we're expecting about 50 or 60 folks to come on here. And as we have a 50-person gallery view, it might be a bit distracting. So we'll toss it to the panelists. We've got a great lineup here today. And maybe we will start with Colin Koach at the City of Boise.
Wow, all right. Thanks, Nick, and thanks everyone for being here today. And I first want to just acknowledge everything that you may be going through and everything that's a part of it. I am curious to see what size of companies everyone has, but you're playing a critical role in our community, not only for yourselves and your families, but for your employees as well. That's a big deal. So I work here with the City of Boise and in organizational development, and really spend a lot of time thinking about our employees so that we can be out in the community serving you. So I'm happy to be here today. I'll share just a few minutes of introduction of kind of some thoughts I have that I hope you might find useful during this time. But I do want to offer myself for follow-up for anybody who hears me say something that you'd like to learn more about. So I'll just spend a few minutes here. And as I've been thinking about this and thinking about, gosh, how to connect with people right now in a time where there's so much going on. You may have concern for your business, concern from your family, concern for your employees, and how can you think about this? And there's information flying around all over the place. There's no shortage of information and articles and resources, and I'm sure you have a cousin and an uncle and somebody sending you what you need. So what I was trying to think of to offer is what story or image comes to mind for navigating this time, for navigating this uncertainty. And the metaphor I want to use that I think almost everyone in Boise can relate with is imagine yourself leading a hike, right? So you are leading a large group hike. Maybe there's 50 people on the hike, maybe there's 100 people on the hike. I don't know how many. But when things are normal, right, in non-crisis times, it's like going for a hike in the foothills on the trail. You know where you're going, routine is strong, everybody knows their role, everything is moving along, although it might be challenging, although it might be hard, you generally know what's going on. But somewhere along the way in a crisis like this, you end up in the forest and you end up off the trail. And so now all of a sudden you're still leading this big group hike, but you are now off the trail. There is no rule book, there is no playbook for exactly what you need to be doing for this time. And so what I want to offer is just a few things of imagining yourself now leading this group hike off the trail, and what is it that is critically essential for you to be providing for your employees and for your people. And the first thing that I'll say, there's two things I would really want to encourage you to focus on during this time, and then I'll welcome questions later on. But that's the idea of creating connection for your people and providing direction. So creating connection really comes first. We are wired for connection. If people are stressed and nervous and don't know what to do, it's very hard for them to access sort of their rational brains and do their best thinking. So in this time, creating connection with your team, with your organization, no matter how large it is really important. And you as the leader are the one who are going to be looking for. So you can ask yourself, am I visible, available, and present for the people involved? Have I established new rhythms of checking in? Have I established new routines of not, some people might think that you'd connect less frequently in a time like this, but you really want to be connecting more frequently and make sure that folks are really together. In that, it's actually a great opportunity to really be clarifying, again, you're off the trail. What's your North Star, right? So when it gets dark or when it gets difficult, as an organization, really be thinking about what's my North Star? What's the purpose and the values of our organization? Because right now, your employees and folks who are looking to you, that's what they're going to be looking for. And this is only sort of the beginning of this experience, but you have an opportunity to really build some loyalty and build a strong team and maybe even family through this. So really encourage you to connect into what's your purpose and what are your unique values as an organization, and to hone in on that. And then finally, this idea of then providing a sense of direction. So when you're out in the wilderness, there's no trail to follow, but you can still see the next horizon. You can still see the next milestone that you want to go to. And so making sure that you're making your expectations clear along the way, that you're being as transparent as possible, right? Your employees want to see the real you. So it's okay to be real and to be vulnerable. They also just want to know that you're inspiring that confidence and that you're going to be with them as you go there together. And that you really can assign and delegate things clearly. People are ready to step up to the task. So that's kind of my introduction of really thinking about, you're off the trail now, you're leading a group, but it's in a different situation, and your most important tasks as a leader at this point are creating a sense of connection for people, and then providing as clear direction as you can, even if it's only daily or weekly goals at this point. So glad to be here today, and happy to have a conversation later on.
Great. Thank you, Colin. One thing to note real quickly, we do have a chat feature here, which is where you can post your questions, and Tim and I will get those to our panelists. Again, just with the number of folks that we have, this is probably the easiest way to do it. So with that, I'll throw it to Rochelle and Lori with Consilio. If you can tell us just a little bit about yourselves as well as your business, and then give us kind of an overview of what you'd like to talk about today. And then we'll move from there to Shawn and then Taylre.
Good morning. My name is Lori Martin, and Rochelle Lierz is, wave Rochelle. And Rochelle started Consilio 11 years ago. Consilio is Latin for on purpose, and our tagline is love your work. And we believe everyone not only can, but should be able to love your work. And I know that in times of fear and when people are scared, our job is to help people get out of that primal brain and back to a place where we can be strategic, be creative, and think on purpose. Rochelle, did you want to add anything?
I think you summarized it. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you both for joining us. If we could have Shawn Miller with Boise State and Best Day HR up next.
Morning. I'm so pleased to be with you. Thanks for the invite, Nick. I've been wondering and thinking about if the future of work, what it will look like. And the analogy I keep coming up with, and I'm probably older than everyone on the call, is will COVID-19 have the impact on the future of work that 9/11 had on the future of air travel? And prior to the pandemic, we were watching some interesting trends. So we were on par for a labor shortage, with 280,000 baby boomers retiring every month, which is basically 1 out of 5 employees. This statistic has been around for a while, but 25 to 34-year-olds, their approximate stay was 2.8 years. But the Gen Z coming into the workplace which we think a lot about here at Boise State. 40% of that generation, when they were surveyed, felt that they were going to be self-employed entrepreneurs. And so prior to the pandemic, when you looked at those statistics, it was something that employers really needed to pay attention to. So maybe some of those things will change now in the future work world, as far as maybe individuals staying longer in the workplace out of necessity, looking for work, obviously as the employment rate starts to climb here. But prior to the pandemic and I think post-pandemic, the trend that we're most interested in seeing is that employees are really looking for places of belonging. And so Colin used the word connection. I think it's the same thing. People want to know that they belong in a certain organization. Mercer did a study in 2019, and 7,300 leaders around the world were asked what their two biggest threats were to the workplace. And one was finding people to fill roles. So we'll see how that changes now. But the second was lower declining employee engagement. And so I will echo what Colin said, that at this time, I think what I'm seeing people really searching for, kind of Maslow's hierarchy, is information. Is my job safe? What's our customer base looking like? Are we going to do a furlough? Are we going to do a layoff? How do I apply for unemployment? So the more transparent communication you can have in this quickly evolving daily world of work, obviously the better. But secondly, prior to COVID and I think post-COVID, people will still continue to look at and look for places where they feel they belong and where they're needed and where they're valued. And I think there'll be lots of after-action review that goes on from commentators and employees after this, after we come out the other side of this. How did their employer treat them? And was it a place that their values were truly lived? And is it a place where they felt that the organization, to the extent possible, financially at least, had their back? So we're watching those trends, and it's an interesting world, and it's going to be very fascinating the next 6 months to a year to see how the work world changes.
Awesome. Thank you, Shawn. Appreciate those thoughts, and we'll definitely be circling back to all of these topics. So for our final panelist, we have Taylre Brigham. So I'll throw it to Taylre.
Hi guys, I'm Taylre. Thanks for the invite today. I work with Ataraxis PEO. We're a professional employer organization who provides services in the form of HR, payroll, and benefits to really any size of client and pretty much anywhere in the US right now. And I couldn't agree with Colin and Shawn more. Right now is a very difficult time for employees to feel connected and valued. And so, you know, my job on top of any other HR employee in our company is just really guiding business owners, managers in the right direction during this unknown time. You know, we've been attending different webinars, different trainings, and just different things to make sure we're providing our clients with the most up-to-date knowledge to really guide through this and make sure while we're doing that, we are taking those employee feelings and connectedness into consideration. You know, so I'm kind of just here to speak to some of the communications we've drafted, different things we've guided our clients on doing, and just kind of best practices that we've implemented internally to make everyone feel connected, and, you know, how to best get through this tough time. So I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you, Taylre. And, you know, maybe we can start there. I know that you've been sharing some resources with us as we compile all these different tips and tricks that we find, you know, and if those of you on the call aren't aware, there's a Slack channel that we will put into the chat where we're putting all these resources for you to access. That's hosted via Trailhead. But maybe more, Taylre, from kind of the technical side of what are the do's and don'ts as people are in a situation where they may have to furlough or lay off And then we can move more to the kind of softer skill set of approaching these things with compassion. But if you want to start us off with some of the technical stuff, that'd be great.
Totally. I think, as we all know, this is changing by the hour, by the minute. So what you may decide yesterday is probably not going to be the best for your business today. As we've seen this stimulus package roll out and just the different things that are available for different businesses. Last week we were advising, let's furlough or let's lay people off. When you're going the route as far as furloughing, you're putting them on that unpaid leave. They have a job to essentially return to. They're still, able to stay on benefits, etc. So it kind of eliminates that uneasiness of, oh, do I have a job to return to? Now, with us seeing this new stimulus package and the payroll protection program, continuing to pay your employees for as long as possible to help benefit you in taking advantage of this loan. Because they are forgiving payroll costs when it comes to this loan. So you continue to pay your employees even if they're not working. You apply for this loan that we're hoping the application's ready to go on Friday. And then you are submitting payroll reports that Ataraxis would, run if you were a client of ours or whoever you partner with, and get you those reports to really, really take advantage of, hey, I want to retain my employees through this tough time. So I'm going to keep paying them their regular rate so that when the time comes, you're getting all of that forgiven. So essentially this loan is being looked at as a grant for employers. We have our CEO and COO kind of heading the way for this loan, just because there's so many other HR things when it comes to the emergency sick leave and this new extended FMLA that we're, trying to help guide our clients through taking advantage of. But there's just so many different things dependent on your size of business. It really makes sense to do everything in your power right now to continue to pay them so you can take advantage of this loan. So that's kind of where we're guiding employees right now. Employers, sorry. But we also understand that, it's a tough time. Employers might not have that option to continue to pay employees. So if you furlough or lay someone off, but you still want to take advantage of this, that's definitely an option. They're just going to take into consideration who you furloughed, the amount of salary or hourly money that you essentially are not paying during this time, and they'll kind of subtract that out of the amount in which you would be forgiven for that loan. We're just trying to stay on top of this as much as possible. I'm attending a webinar right after this to just learn more about it and just really get the most up-to-date communications to our clients once it comes out. So that's kind of where we're at with that. But honestly, when I have clients reach out to me, it's really just dependent on making sure we're not, at risk by picking and choosing who we're going to furlough, who we're going to lay off, making sure we have that correct risk analysis, even though we are in a trying time right now.
Great, thank you. And you mentioned the size of companies in our first poll. Just to share the results, if you haven't seen those, we have 55% of the companies that responded have between 1 and 10 employees, 25% have between 10 and 50, 10% 50 to 100, and 10% with 100 plus. So varied sizes, and we're going to come back with a couple of more questions about the type of company, public versus private, and a few others, so watch out for those. But to the rest of our panelists, any other thoughts on the more technical aspects, kind of do's and don'ts, tips that you can provide to these companies as they navigate these challenging times?
I guess for me, Nick, it's just really important that you have everything that you need. So, are you paying out vacation? Are you that you just have all your ducks in a row, like you just don't get to it too quickly because people will have a lot of questions. So in order to make them feel at ease, do make sure that you've gone through everything, because people's brains are so crowded right now, they're missing steps. And so go back to your checklist, make sure that you have everything, because the last thing you need to do is add more chaos.
And the other thing that we say a lot at Consilio, because we deal with a lot of brains that are on fire, I think of it, the amygdala is up, everybody's in fight, flight, or freeze, is repeat yourself. Don't get frustrated as a leader that you said it once. Okay, I said it 3 times. Why aren't they getting it? You're going to have to repeat it 50 times. Everybody's in trauma.
Yeah.
Everybody's got grayed out brain fog. So however you need to communicate it multiple times, written, video, one-to-one, text, doesn't just know you're going to be on repeat, and do your best to keep your patience level high with that, because that will help everybody.
I couldn't agree with you more. You know, they're looking to us as that calmness, and that I'm going to come to you because I'm stressed and I just need someone to be there for me. And so just relaxing and making sure that they're heard and you can provide that. I totally hear you. You know, here's what we're doing, and just following up with them. We've all we're all in this together, and this is so different for everyone. And so just making sure we're being that added resource for employees and business owners. It's the only way we're going to be able to get through something like this together.
I would also say if you're laying someone off, have a plan for them to be able to get their belongings from work. Usually when you fire or lay someone off, you do it right then. And so where everybody's at home right now, figuring out what does that look like? Do you meet them now? Do we wait till we go back? Because people often want to, when they've lost their job, that's usually on their mind is, how do I get my stuff from work? And so definitely have that plan and what makes the most sense.
And this probably doesn't apply to maybe some of our smaller employers, but for us, if we were going to look at some sort of job action, let's say a furlough, because an employee stays in benefits, because they're potentially eligible for unemployment comp, we're really evaluating doing a real strong financial analysis. Is if you do the furlough, is the juice really worth the squeeze, and the impact on the employee? So once you add in the benefit costs, once you add in the unemployment potential costs, and then just the emotional toll, is it really a worthy effort? And to what Taylor said, this changes by the day. So what seems like a right answer on April 1st may not seem like the right answer on May 1st. So,
Taylor, on that note, since you brought it up, the payroll protection program, one of my members had some concerns about the timing of that funding becoming available. So this member, they decided to furlough employees last week. And, again, last week was probably a different decision than they would have made today. This is that case. And so with this new information available, they're still on the fence on, do I pull the trigger and bring my employees back today because I have work for them to do potentially? Or do I go through the application process because I know some of the banks are still working on bringing that application online? So basically, what's the lead? And there may not be a hard answer to this, but as I'm considering bringing back employees, what kind of lead time am I factoring in from applying for a loan like this until the cash hits the bank?
Yeah.
Taylor,
Go ahead.
I was going to say I've done a lot. I was a banker for 20 years, so I used to do SBAs. So there's two loans on there. One's a 7A, one's an Express. In order to do the Express, you have to be in business for 2 years. So that's going to be one of the first things you look at. An Express is faster than the 7A. So first off, you have to know where your eligibility is, and you can read through those two to know that. Second, do you have a banker that does SBAs? Because if you don't, then you're going to have to go find one, and that's going to be a longer lead time. If you are at Zions or DL Evans, they're the top two SBA lenders in Idaho, so they will be faster at it. Not to say the other banks cannot do it at all, but those two have their systems down the best, at least for Idaho. The second thing, so with that, also you get to pick the 2 months, and you can start February 15th. So it could be February 15th, March 15th. So even if you hadn't laid anybody off yet, you could start there through, I think, June 30th, if I remember that right from last night. Yeah. And so you get to pick your 2 months. So I would just really suggest that you go through the eligibility. The other thing, Taylor, I don't know, I couldn't find anything last night, but SBA is super picky about credit scores. And so if you have a super low credit score, you may not get through the program. Like, I still think their lending is going to be somewhat similar to what it's always been for typical bank loans. So just, I don't know. I didn't see anything that's an absolute guarantee. Taylor, did you?
So a lot of the research are, like I said, our CEO and COO are kind of taking the lead on this, but everything that we've kind of met as a group is they're going to make this as easy and as guaranteed as possible for employers through this time. And, I know applications haven't come out yet, and we're hoping they come out on Friday. But right now, a lot of my clients, other people are getting these applications from their bank, in which we're urging them not to go through with that because we're not 100% that those loans are going to be part of this forgiveness program. And so, TM, to your question, if you furloughed or laid someone off, I had a client go through a mass layoff 2 weeks ago, and they're kind of now in the process of rehiring all of those employees back on so that they can take advantage of the full cost as far as payroll forgiveness is gone. So I don't think there's enough specifics around who and when. I just know they're going to do everything in their power to make sure this is as 100% guaranteed for almost any business right now.
And Taylor, I agree. I would say don't get ahead of it. Wait till the actual application comes in. You are dealing with the government and banks, and it has to still be very lined out. And so you don't want to get with the wrong application.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to start an application through, the SBA has their disaster loan application that's up right now. You apply for that, you get to ahead of the game, and then you realize, holy cow, I applied for the wrong loan. It's not part of this new stimulus package. I can't get this forgiven. And then you're kind of in this boat where you're like, this is not the route I want it to go. For us internally, we've been sending out almost daily communications to our clients, just really urging them, contact us before you do anything. So we can kind of guide you through this and really, really give you that guidance on the best practice for your business. So
there really are three loans that you are kind of looking at, and they all three are SBA loans. So there's the regular traditional one that everybody's used to. And then there is a disaster one, which is the one Taylor is talking about, but there is no forgiveness in it because that just happened with the stimulus. And so I've never seen a forgiveness in an SBA loan before. So that will be a whole different application. I also would highly suggest that before you sign anything and you go through, really read the fine print in the forgiveness part and know exactly what you're getting into so that you don't think that things are forgiven and they're not. You also, in the stuff that I read, you're going to have proof of the things that you want forgiven. So you're going to have to prove that you kept people hired. So you'll have to have those records. If you can do the insurance, you'll have to have those records, utilities, rent, mortgage. And so make sure that you do keep those and know that you're going to have to go back to the bank and turn those over so that they can then give them to the SBA so it can be forgiven.
So if I were to apply this concept to the analogy, the metaphor that Colin used earlier, I really like that, by the way. So if I'm the leader and I'm leading my team on this hike, I'm envisioning this very narrow path where we're all in a nice straight line. The person in the far back can't really see where the person in the very front is going or what even the person is looking at or thinking about. And so as a leader, as I'm navigating, this evolving and constantly changing plethora of loans and stimulus package and information, as I the leader, I'm sifting through and I'm deciding what is the best course of action to take for my organization. How much of that do I privy my employees to? How much of that do I communicate when I don't even have the answers? But yet, it could be, in the sense of staying connected and staying engaged and keeping communications open. I could see it backfire, but I could also see, being transparent about, hey, here are some options that we're working on. And if this money comes through, potentially you stay on or we bring you back. What are your guys's, what's your take on those conversations, best practice?
I'll take a shot on it. When, as a leader, that is a very confusing thing. Is this going to splash? Is this going to be the wrong message? I think you can never miss with vulnerability of the truth that you have at the moment. So if that means that you send out like Taylor said, you're sending out a daily message with the new information you have. And so you can say, for the next 24 hours, this is what we're working with. And the next day you get to say, guess what? Something happened. for the next 24 hours, here's the new factor. We'll talk to you again in 25. So I think that's the only real strategy from a communication standpoint. If you get this is like absolute intense training on being present, and we're all getting it. We cannot be those crazy 3-year planning ahead leaders that we've been trained to be. You can plan for 24 hours. That's it. That's all you get. That is the most intense business mindfulness practice we've ever had as a global society. So I would say swallow that, get used to it, and just do it every single day.
Yeah, I think just being
That's a great perspective. Yeah, plan for 24 hours. And as you plan for that 24-hour cycle, you keep your employees engaged and in the loop of what you're planning for.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly. You know, internally at Ataraxis, we have a daily huddle every day at 9:30 where we all go around. We're all on Zoom right now. And we just kind of talk through what everyone's working on, what different things are happening with clients, new legislation, new information. And that way it just provides us with maybe someone understands something better than I understand it. And hearing their perspective allows me to be like, oh, that makes more sense now that you said it that way. And we all feel connected and there for each other during this time. And it just creates that transparency of, hey, this is what our CEO and COO are working on communicating, and this is what we're working on communicating and, you know, leading. And I think it's just created this sense of calmness that we can all be like, okay, we're here for each other. We have each other's back. Tomorrow's going to be different, but today, this is what we're doing.
I'll add just a short thought here. I agree with everything I'm hearing. And on that 24-hour planning cycle, if that is what you were doing, I think an important thing here as a leader is to remember, even if you are up at the front of that line, that you always have the power with you to pause for a second and to gain that calm and really be asking yourself, what is important to me right now? What is really important? And sort of clarify those thoughts. And that way, when you have your daily huddle or your daily check-ins with your team, you're coming from a place where you've already gathered your thoughts. And so you can both, and I've got an article here that I can share, but your people really are going to be looking to you for cues on how to act. It's this idea of emotional contagion. So if you can gather yourself and have that deliberate calm, right, where you are sharing, you can share your concerns and your anxieties. People want to know that you're human, but you're also able to do so in a way that really conveys confidence and that is putting forth the principles or values that you're focused on at that time. So just remembering that no matter how chaotic it feels, you always have the power to pause for a second and to gather your thoughts before kind of sharing with the group.
Tactic that we're using is, as Rochelle said, it is a 24-hour cycle now, but there's also lots that's known. So we created a Trello board and we just listed every project that was in play, backlog of work that we wish we had been able to get to a few months ago. And now we're sharing that with all of our team to say, yep, there's this body of information that we don't know answers to, but here's a body of information that is comforting because it's the way we used to do business, which is we have enough work. Here's what you're working on. And if your current job, you don't have the ability to do work in that area, we're looking at reassigning people. And again, that might be easier in some organizations than others. But I think as we can find some normalcy for our folks to what they're used to, that also has a calming presence.
I'm going to talk about a little bit of what Colin said about the emotional contagion. People can feel, so there's this thing called the heart, where we are aligned with the brain and the heart, and people can feel if we are not being honest. And so if your mouth is saying one thing, but you believe something else, your people are going to pick it up. So if you're saying, you're giving off that confident feel of we're going to be fine, but you don't believe it, they're going to feel that disconnect. So part of that making people feel safe as much as you can and positive is being honest with them, or also saying, you know, I don't know, but as soon as I do. So be careful that you aren't saying one thing and believing another. And also, I do really believe in giving people hope. And some people have said hope is not a strategy, but hope is a strategy. And the reason that hope is a strategy is it gives people something to look forward to. And it's also a bigger predictor of success than anything else. And so having hope, this is a blip in time, We will get through it. Things will change, but we are resilient, we are smart, and we're going to be okay.
One hack we do at Consilio often is, Susan, who's actually on the call, brought it to us, is your brain cannot be in fear or in curiosity at the same time. So a very, very simple hack, if you're trying as a leader to figure out how to dampen the fear, is to ask a question and ask everyone else to bring a question to your daily huddle. What question can you ask right now? It will pivot your brain out of the fear zone, because it's not possible to do both at the same time. Biologically not possible. You will be lighting up the hormones you need to get through it and to create the hope that Lori just talked about.
So we covered a lot about furloughed employees, keeping employees on versus laying them off entirely. What about those employees that you as a leader have to let go for the time being? What kind of best practices do you all suggest we consider in supporting them after they part from our organization? One thing that comes to mind is I'm watching on the social media channels, I'm watching, layoffs of all kinds of scale, small layoffs, big layoffs. The market seems to be flooded with job-seeking talent right now, just from where I sit. Not entirely sure what the number of unemployment claims was last week in the Treasure Valley, but employees are also those that are unfortunately being let go, they're being released into an environment that is somewhat unique in terms of who's hiring, what's the hiring activity, and what other talent has now flooded the market that I'm competing with. Those circles also can instill some anxiety or uncertainty. And any pointers on how to support employees that you do part ways with, whether that's indefinite or even for a short amount of time?
What I would say, just overarching, is lace it with as much graciousness and kindness and empathy that you can muster out of your body for each person. And if you have to do a mass layoff, you find a supportive team to help all of those people transition. And one of the things we really coach our clients to do is to build a support system of transition. There's so many business idioms out there, and one of them is slow to hire, fast to fire. And what comes with that is a lack of empathy. And that's walking people to the door of, and tearing away the social structure they've had for whatever number of years they've been. And I'm not saying to slow it down, and you don't have to rip the Band-Aid off sometime to make it go faster, but you can build support systems in. As a leader, you have access to resources that those employees don't have. So giving them a soft place to land so that they know that they always have you to support as they transition. So and everybody's environment looks different based, Micron, you've got intellectual property to protect, whereas, you have environments where that's not an issue. But finding a way to be as gracious and kind in the transition as you can.
I also believe in giving them the tools that you can find. So how do you fill out unemployment? What does that look like? We're not going to fight you on it. It is what it is. Another thing is I did see at the business review, actually I think they're keeping a list of all the places that are hiring in Treasure Valley right now. And so I know all the grocery stores are hiring. We're needing truck drivers for transferring the food. There are a list of cleaning companies. So there are a list of people hiring and needing people right now. So helping them find that list and give it to them. I saw also on LinkedIn last night where one of the big hotel chains, they'd had to, I think, lay off 80% of their staff nationwide. And every single location, including here in Boise, they sent boxes of food, and the employees that were left were boxing up. It was like boxes of rice and bags of beans, and they were taking them to every family that was laid off. So what can we do that's a little bit above what we've been doing in the past? and just kind of think through that.
Yeah, I agree with kind of to Rochelle's comment. You know, you as a business leader or owner may have other resources or other people who may be hiring for a job that you think this person you just laid off would be a great fit. And so connecting them with those resources, staying in touch with them, checking in just to see how they may be doing, even if it's just on a personal level. I think that goes a long way. You know so much about them because you have had that opportunity to work with them, develop them, see their skills. And so just using your resources to really, really guide them and help them through a time that's, you know, really trying for everyone.
I think reminding them, we do Gallup StrengthsFinder, and you don't have to know StrengthsFinder, but reminding them what they do well, reminding them that this isn't about the job that they did. This is not that their behavior's crappy, their character's crappy, that this is just part of the situation, but remind them of all the things that they do well, even if you can make that list for them, because they're gonna be scared. And so these are all the things that you do amazing. And also, like, you might have to go take a job maybe at the grocery store as a checker, which is maybe nothing that you ever wanted, but it also won't last forever. And that you have the skills to change at any time. And sometimes we have to do things in the interim. So I think just reminding them of their value. I feel like we lost him. He's gone. I just noticed that. I asked the question. Oh, there you are. Good. Okay.
So now that we've touched a little bit on those who theoretically have now departed our organization, what about those that are left behind? So how do you, and Colin, I'd like to get your take on this, that analogy of the hike. I'm really craving the hike, or that just really stuck with me as one of the two. But how do you, for those remaining on the hike with you, how do you keep them engaged? How do you maintain a sense maybe culture that you just left behind, now that, you know, the employees that are left behind and are still in the trenches with you, you know, also have just gone through this feeling of loss, because now they've lost, in quotation marks, people that they've worked with in some cases for many years. So how do you navigate that for the employees that are left behind, and also for those of us that have to make these decisions and talk to people? How do we maintain our sense of sanity and culture as we have to go back and lead the organization on a daily basis?
I'm just going to interject real quickly. I don't think anyone's surprised that the guy from Trailhead is obsessively following the hike analogy. I think Colin was kind of leading him along on that. You know, what if we were on a trail? What if we were on a hike? What does that remind you of?
Great question. So there's a lot there. And part of where I would start is going back to when you're on that normal trail, there is a routine. And human beings, we really do like routine and consistency. So even though we're now off the trail and we're somewhere new, you can still be creating routine and consistency and predictability even in that context. So even if it's a daily morning huddle, even if it's assignments we get in the morning, even if it's checking in, whatever that is, that would be sort of my first recommendation, is to spend some time thinking about what are the new routines, habits, expectations that I want to have in place, and have I communicated those things clearly? So I know that some organizations and small teams will just spend time on saying, what are the set of principles that, now that we're off the trail, what are the set of principles we all need to be agreeing to at this time, and what are some of the practices that go along with that? So would encourage you as individual leaders to start that for yourself, right? Because your well-being and your mental capacity is really important. So I am asking leaders to think about, do you have daily practices in place for yourself to gather your thoughts, to clarify what's important to you, and then to kind of set an intention or a course for the day? And then are you building those kinds of practices and habits for your team so that you can be checking in on those things? So I'll leave that there and see if there's any more questions or comments from other people. But that would be my first recommendation, is get some new habits and practices into place that fit the circumstances, and make sure not to forget yourself and your own habits and well-being practices you need to keep your thinking in a good place.
My other thing is to be super realistic. we have parents at home with kids that are now trying to figure out how do we do school on top of work. And so it does not look the same at all. And I think we're going to have a heck of a lot more grace and understanding, and that routines are going to be super tipped upside down. I have a CEO that I coach in Boston, and she did a beautiful job of telling people, you are going to have to, take your kids out for a walk maybe at 2 and skip the meeting, and your job is not in jeopardy. And so for me, it's that messaging. We know that you're raising children now, and you're also a teacher now, and you're also at home 24/7. So I think letting parents know that it's okay, that things are different. I also coach a guy here in Boise, and he did not roll it out very well, and his staff is scared to death, and they don't know what to do, and their kids are there. So how you roll it out and being really just honest with where we're at right now, and that you are teaching, and as if there's employees here, ask for what you need. Marcella is on here, and Susan and Rochelle and I don't have school-age kids. And she's like, the bus comes at 11 every day, and I have to go pick up their assignments. And so can we move our meeting to 11:30? We had no idea the bus was coming unless she said that, right? And so letting people know, like, ask for what you need. Tell us what's going on, because if you don't have kids that age or in that school district, you might not know. So please just ask for it, and also be aware of it, and be asking your employees what is going on in your home with your kids, and what are the expectations there. I don't even know how people are doing it with 3 kids, and they're supposed to be teaching, and I don't know, do people have that many computers? I don't think so. Yeah.
So pulling on that thread a little bit, Shawn, you talked about the Maslow's hierarchy, and how I think a lot of people are just looking for those first couple levels of safety and well-being. And as we transition from, here's how you furlough or lay off or make those changes with compassion and empathy, to focusing on the folks that are still with you. What are some tips and tricks to get beyond that just safety and well-being aspect back to a high performance? And is that realistic in these uncertain situations?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Nick. I like the word that Laura used, grace. So back to the furloughs just really quickly. So it's a financial, it's a legal decision for an employer. It's a psychological experience for the employee. And so just like you treat them with grace, lots of information, they're going to talk to their coworkers. And so that will have repercussions for the individuals who remain in the workplace, because they're going to see how you treated that person, and then they're going to use Colin's word, the emotional contagion, they're going to see, maybe take that on of how they might be treated. So once you get to that point, having that Zoom call, answering their questions, being honest with what you know and what you don't know, then hopefully you can turn it to having people become entrepreneurial again, of, okay, what do we need to do to win today's battle? What do we need to do to keep the doors open? What do we need to do to please our customers? Because when we do that, we have the potential at some point that we will come out of this and have the opportunity to hire again. So as you take and fill the space that anxiety might be filling with action and collaboration from your team, and getting them focused in trying to create a shared fate of what you're trying to do for that day or that week, I think you have an opportunity to more quickly get back to, I won't say the normal, but at least into a rhythm, what the new cadence looks like in this world.
Yeah, and I think one thing to add, kind of going back to what we were just previously talking about, is as we're all kind of developing these new rhythms and processes, and just the things that are happening on a day-to-day basis that are making everyone uneasy, finding that time to really celebrate the wins and the good things that you can find. I'll go back to something we do internally. Every day at the end of our huddle, we all talk about what wins do we have from yesterday, whether it's work, personal, anything, and just really opening up to each other and getting that time to kind of take our focus off of kind of the negative and the bad and the craziness that's happening right now, so we can all kind of decompress and, well, I had this awesome thing happen, or I'm doing this personally, that's great. You know, every Friday we have Good News Friday, where we share something from that week that really impacted us and really helped us get through our week. And so I think not forgetting during this time to really celebrate those wins, to kind of just relieve that uneasiness of what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know, but let's celebrate this today, because that's the moment we're in.
I think there's a question that was posted in the chat, and I believe, Colin, you've volunteered to take a crack at it. So why don't we pick that question up?
Yeah, Carly, thanks for the question. I love how you're thinking about this, because yes, there is a lot being done about sharing resources. I can't necessarily point to any particular industry employee groups who are providing support for each other, but knowing your connection, what I can say is that the city of Boise, we have our incident management team has stood up a group on, basically it's a vulnerable populations sort of task group. And we have a number of relationship managers and project managers who are helping to consolidate and coordinate resources across the city. So we do have the small business community identified in those kinds of things. But I guess what I'm trying to suggest is that we have some infrastructure that we're starting to build, that if anybody does come across communities of people who are wanting to provide support for each other, but may need some help or some support in terms of connection and infrastructure. And one of the things that we have coming through that I know a number of other communities around the world are doing is sort of a matching feature, where we are both looking for what do people in the community have to offer, and then what do people in the community have to, what needs do they have. And so we as the city are trying to help, at least right now in the vulnerable populations, stand up this sort of matching function. And I imagine that we could have conversation about doing something like that if there was an industry specific group of people to sort of provide that support. And then I just heard of one other example in the Netherlands, I think, where there's more of a social app where just individual citizens are able to put out there what they have to offer and what they're looking for. So I think there are some technologies out there that we could support, some infrastructure. I'm not aware right now of any industry groups that are doing that, but if you come across anything, or if anyone else has ideas, I think we could try to support that.
I know our time is about up. I just want to leave you guys with one thing. I am big into laughter. I am big into having fun. And just because we're at home does not mean that that should quit. I don't have children. And so one of my favorite things is when I Zoom with people, everybody's like, their kids are popping in, saying hi. And like that like makes my day as I'm by myself with my husband in this house. So like enjoy those things. Don't be embarrassed of them. Don't think you can't do them. It's not professional. Like those things bring us joy. So also like get a text thing or an email or a Slack where you're sending funny videos, funny things. This has been heavy because there's some really serious things here, but when we talk about morale and keeping people, like even if we laugh a bunch of people and who's left, you still have to have fun, you still have to laugh, and you still have to feel productive. So as a leader, if you can make those things happen. And the last thing is we're really big on active recovery. And so it's really easy right now, especially as I'm looking out and it is just pouring rain here at my house and I was gonna go for a walk after this. But it's real easy at night now or during the day to just, you know, I love Netflix. I'm the biggest TV watcher, but active recovery is actually connecting with people. So have a glass of wine on Zoom with someone, go for a walk and talk to my friend Shawn and I have been walking and we talk while we walk on the phone. So encourage your people to do active recovery because right now it's really easy to do passive recovery, which won't refresh our brains and won't help us out. So have some joy and have some active recovery.
Thank you, Lori. That's really good advice on all fronts. As you mentioned, we're nearing the end of our time together. So maybe we'll just open it up to all the panelists. If you have any final thoughts, again, for everyone that's on the call, the chat feature is a great way to submit questions and we'll be wrapping it up. So if you do have any questions that are lingering, submit them now, and we'll make time towards the end. With that, we'll throw it to the panelists for some final remarks, and then TM and I will share a little bit of information towards the end. So maybe we will go in reverse order this time and start with Taylre.
I can't thank you guys enough for having me on here. You know, to Lori's point, finding the joy right now, celebrating those wins, and just staying calm and being that added resource for your team. You know, as this changes on a day-to-day basis, don't make those rash decisions. Really look at it as a whole and what's really going to benefit you in the long run. We'll all come out of this, and you know, you don't want to make a decision that's going to benefit you today. You want to make a decision that's going to benefit you in the future as well. And just always keeping that in mind. You know, you're the leader, they look up to you, and allowing yourself to decompress and just really get through this and having someone to vent to, you know, I can't recommend that enough. I'm always here for an added resource. If anyone wants to reach out on a, you know, one-on-one level, feel free to email or give Ataraxis a call. We can definitely help you guys through whatever it is you may be going through.
I'm going to jump on that with Taylre. We're the same way. We've been in Boise for years, and we're here for the community, wherever the needs are. We can find the resources. That's what we're best at. So thank you for having us, Nic.
Thank you. Shawn?
Yeah, just echo. So it's an honor to be with this panel. I know some of these folks, and they're super smart, and hearing the rest of them, everyone's motivated to do good. I think we're all blessed to live in Boise as a community, where it's a big, small town, where if you need resources, you need help, you need support, it's always there for you. So I extend the same offer. If I can be of service or assistance to anyone who's listening on the call, or you know of someone who needs help, that just want to talk about some HR issues, happy to do so.
Awesome. Thank you. Colin?
Yeah, echoing the thanks to Trailhead and the Venture College for putting this together, and to our local business owners. My closing comment is simply that regardless of everything that's going on around you, there is something about what has led you to be an entrepreneur, to be a business owner, to be a leader, that nobody can take away from you. No matter what the circumstances are, you have a strength that nobody can take away. And so just trusting in yourself, and trusting that you'll come out of this stronger one way or another, and know that you do have support available to you anytime you should need it.
Great. Thank you. First, thanks to all of our panelists for making the time. I know how busy each and every one of you are, as well as the folks that joined the call. One thing that just stood out to me in those final comments, I think each of you used the word community, and what we've seen since we started the Survive to Thrive series, I think 10 days ago or so, is a really strong community forming here. And I just appreciate everyone who's joining us. As we've said in each of these, we hope that this is the start of a conversation, not the end of the conversation. Trailhead, the Venture College, and all these folks that are on this call care about this community. We care about the people that are in it, and we're here as resources to you. So please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. We will follow up with an email here that will have a link to this recorded session that you can share out with others, as well as a link to different resources. On a slightly different note, we've been doing these a couple times a week. This Thursday, I would invite you all to join us for the Idaho Entrepreneur Challenge, just to give ourselves a bit of a break. The Venture College hosts a statewide competition for college students that are starting businesses, and we have 23 teams this year. We actually had 23 out of the 24 teams that had made it to the finals before this situation hit, and 23 out of the 24 are continuing. That'll be hosted online. We will live stream the finals on our Boise State Twitch channel at 4 o'clock this Thursday. So please join us for that. It should be a pretty inspiring event. You'll see some aspiring entrepreneurs pitching their ideas, and hopefully building the companies of tomorrow. And then we'll be back next week. Right now on Tuesday, we haven't nailed down a time, but we'll have for sure Michelle Crosby, the CEO of Weavorse, talking about what she's done with her company in these challenging times, as well as a couple of other entrepreneurs that we're working to firm up. But again, the point is to show folks, hey, there are resources, there are people that want to help you, and hopefully you're tapping into those resources. So with that, I'll throw it to TM, and he can offer some closing remarks, and we'll wrap up.
Sure, I'll keep it brief. I'm just grateful for the panelists taking time out of their day, as well as our audience calling in. It really goes to show the resiliency of our city and our region here. Small business, we have to stick together, anywhere from startups to established small businesses. And this is just one platform where we all can come together, share information, share best practices, make sure we all survive so we can come out on the other end of this and thrive together. So for that, I want to thank everyone. And I look forward to our next session next week, Tuesday, more focused on the impact that this has had on startups and how our local startups are responding to this crisis. So thank you, Nic.
All right, I think with that, we will wrap it up. Thank you again to our panelists and to everyone who joined the call today. And we will see you hopefully on Thursday. And if not, we'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.